Another year and another slow start for the Bengals, where we all wonder if they're actually good or not. The Bengals are already 0-2 to start the season. And sure, one of those losses was to the Chiefs, but the other was to the Patriots. And if they lose to the Commanders on Monday too, you can go ahead and burn it all down. But the Bengals seem to always do this. They are never able to play well early in the season, and it's just a matter of when or if they'll actually turn it on down the stretch. And who knows? But it is concerning. The Bengals season so far has been completely disappointing. And week 1, it was ugly. It was probably the biggest upset of the week. The Patriots coming into this season were expected to be just horrible and predicted by some to be the worst team in the NFL. But as for the Bengals, well, they came into this game with high expectations like they always have. But it's safe to say that they didn't live up to them at all. They literally couldn't move the ball against the gutted New England defense. The Patriots were up 10-0 going into the half, but it still felt like the Bengals could turn it around and win the game. I mean, after all, they were the clear better team, but it didn't matter. The Patriots held on to the lead, and the Bengals did get close, but they lost 16-10. Cincinnati just looked bad, and it didn't help that they turned the ball over 2 times. Week 1 was supposed to be the easy, guaranteed win for the Bengals, because the next week, the Bengals had to turn around and play the Chiefs. But luckily for them, it was one of the worst games we've seen Patrick Mahomes play in a while. He threw 2 picks, and it really wasn't the Chiefs' best game either. And I do gotta say, the Bengals at the very least looked pretty solid. They led 16-10 at halftime and even led going into the fourth quarter. Evan McPherson drilled a 53-yard field goal with 9:28 remaining to take the lead, and it was looking like Cincinnati might be able to pull this win off until it came down to the final play where Harrison Butker drilled a game-winning field goal from 51 yards out to win it 26-25. It really did feel just like the most dumb Mahomes way to win possible. And now the only thing that the Bengals have held on to is dead. It's not Burrowhead anymore. It is such a dumb saying now. Yes, the Bengals beat the Chiefs in the 2021 playoffs in overtime, and it was a big win, but since then, they've played at Arrowhead 3 times, and the Chiefs have won every single one. The Burrowhead narrative is dead. Now, a slow start to the season for the Bengals isn't exactly a new thing. This has been the case every single year since Zach Taylor was hired back in 2019. The Bengals have never started hot, and now for the 3rd straight season, they've started 0-2, and they really have just been especially horrendous in week 2. They are now 0-6 in week 2 since Zach Taylor was hired. Granted, the last 5 have been within a possession, but the Bengals just can't win. And week 1 has been pretty rough too. They're 1-5 under Taylor, and the only win was actually in 2021, the season the Bengals ended up playing in the Super Bowl against the Rams. And just like in week 2, only one of those games hasn't been within 1 score, which was a blowout loss to the Browns last year. Now, as a Patriots fan, I went into week 1 expecting a guaranteed L. I did not expect New England to be able to compete with this Cincinnati team. On paper, they are a much better team than the Patriots are right now, so I expected to come into this game and get absolutely shellacked, but that wasn't the case. Somehow, some way, the New England Patriots found a way to win, and it was a very gritty way of football. The Bengals didn't lose this game because the Patriots were the better team. The Bengals lost the game because they had a bunch of self-inflicted mistakes. The Bengals just couldn't get it together. New England took advantage of those weaknesses, and because of that, won the game. The Bengals got really close to coming back and winning this game, but they hurt themselves. They literally fumbled the ball at the goal line when it looked like they were about to score. Those are things that you just can't allow happen on game day. Now, easier said than done, I know, but the Bengals should have won this game by like 3 or 4 scores. And the fact that they were only able to put up 10 points is very concerning. Now, if there is a bright side to that, it's that they did look better in week 2 against the Chiefs. At one point, it really felt like Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals was like Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite, but blood is immune now. I don't know. Patrick Mahomes is not fazed by the whole Burrowhead allegations or the Cincinnati Bengals. They've really ran the table when it comes to that rivalry, if you can even call it a rivalry still. Now, like we said, Mahomes didn't look that great, and the Bengals did look better, but they still didn't do enough to win the game. Losing to the Kansas City Chiefs really isn't that big of a deal or too much cause for panic, but it is a big deal when your whole identity as a successful team comes from being better than the Chiefs and beating the Chiefs. But they're simply just not doing that anymore, and they haven't done that at Arrowhead since 2021. I'm not going to hit the panic button on the Cincinnati Bengals yet. I feel like we have every single season that they've they've started 0-2, but at the end of the day, we know that this team, barring some major injury, is going to turn it around and be a playoff team down the stretch if they can kind of, get everything together. But this season is a weird season, man. The Bengals are 0-2. Who else is 0-2? Oh yeah, the other team that was expected to run the division, the Baltimore Ravens. Meanwhile, the Justin Fields-led Steelers are 2-0. Who would have thought? I don't know. This season is already off to a crazy start, but the Bengals starting 0-2 isn't really that much of a shock. I don't know what it is with this team. Maybe they're taking it too easy in camp. I don't know. But if you were to compare them to pretty much every other team, they consistently come into the season less prepared than really everyone else. And at the end of the day, that's a Zach Taylor problem. It feels like the biggest thing that the Bengals still hang their hat on has been making it to the Super Bowl and getting pretty close to beating the Rams. That has been the storyline for so long. Like, wow, Joe Burrow beat Patrick Mahomes and got to the Super Bowl. Congratulations. But sometimes it feels like the media just gives Burrow and the Bengals more credit for losing in the Super Bowl than most teams get for winning big games. Yes, the Bengals were really close to winning it all, but it's been a while since then. They got back to the AFC Championship the next year, but it didn't work out. They lost to Mahomes and the Chiefs and thus started a back-to-back. Then last year was just messy and they missed the playoffs with Burrow being hurt. I would say that the Bengals are probably in a spot where they have to prove themselves again. 2021 was a great season, but at the end of the day, they don't have a ring. The 49ers have lost 2 Super Bowls to the Chiefs, yet the media sometimes sounds like they have more to prove than the Bengals, when the reality is, it doesn't matter if neither one of them has won a ring. The Bengals, simply put, need to find a way to get back and try to actually get to the top of the mountain, but that's really hard to do when you start 0-2 and have a bad start to literally every single season. And that's where the question of coaching comes in. Zach Taylor was hired back in 2019 after that very long tenure of Marvin Lewis that really just never worked out. But then he was hired and he took over a really messy situation. Cincinnati was just awful under him at first. They ended up going 2-14 in 2019, which was bad, but it did ultimately land them Heisman winner and national champion Joe Burrow, who has certainly changed the trajectory of the franchise. But it wasn't immediate. He tore his ACL as a rookie, and the Bengals still weren't great and went 4-11-1. But that season got them another high pick, and the Bengals used that pick to select Jamar Chase at the draft. That pick really changed everything. Add Chase to T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and even Joe Mixon, and suddenly the Bengals offense was elite, and they made it all the way to the Super Bowl where they lost to the Rams. It was really impressive just how fast the Bengals were able to turn everything around. And some of that success does belong to Zach Taylor, but at the end of the day, the Bengals still have a lot to prove. If you take away that one close victory against the Chiefs in overtime during the 2021 playoffs, the way Joe Burrow's career is viewed is completely different, which is fair. I mean, if you make the Super Bowl, you do deserve to get your flowers, but the Bengals just haven't done enough since. The good news is that he is still young at only 27, and the window for the Bengals is open for a long time, but it's just not good enough to be a top team in the regular season. I don't know what it is with the Bengals and slow starts, but they've just never been able to figure it out. They definitely looked a lot better against the Chiefs, but the Patriots loss was inexcusable. The Bengals can't keep getting off to slow starts every single season and still expect to be playing late into January, but they have been able to figure it out in the past, and who knows, maybe this is their year.